Well, good morning, everyone, or perhaps even good afternoon or good evening, depending on your time zone right now. Thank you very much for joining us for the webinar today. It's an introduction to cloud managed IT for manufacturing, topic of the webinar. My name is Imran Idris. I'm marketing manager here at Meraki. What I'd like to do to start the session off today is actually just share the agenda with you guys so you know what's coming up. We can start by talking a little bit about Meraki to begin with, particularly for those of you online who are less familiar with how we fit into the wider Cisco organization. I'll then move on to talking about the technology architecture in a little bit more detail, paying particular attention to the key differences between what we've developed here compared to perhaps the more traditional approach that you might be used to. I'll actually then also talk about some of the solution highlights that we've seen resonating particularly well with our manufacturing customers. And speaking of customers, we will take a closer look at Bar-S Foods and a total cost of ownership analysis that we did in conjunction with Bar-S Foods, and we'll talk about some of the cost savings that they experienced as a result of deploying Meraki. I'll actually then flip over to my web browser and we can take a look at a live demonstration of the Meraki dashboard in action. The dashboard being the single pane of glass to manage the entire portfolio of Meraki devices. And at that point, what I'll use as an example network to give you an idea of a real life living and breathing network and the sorts of things that can be achieved is actually our very own Meraki network that we have deployed at various locations around the world. We'll come back to the presentation at that point. We'll take a look at the entire portfolio that we do have, and we'll leave time at the end for a Q&A session. So about Cisco Meraki then, well, for those of you who do like to keep yourselves up to date with the latest technology news, we'll all know that Cisco Meraki was actually born out of an acquisition that Cisco made at the end of 2012, whereby they acquired a company called Meraki. So even before Meraki was acquired, we were the leader in cloud-managed networking. And I use that term networking quite purposefully because we've moved on beyond that now to be actually a leader in cloud-managed IT. So we really have seen some tremendous growth since the acquisition. At the point of acquisition, we had around 20,000 customers worldwide. That number's now shot up to over 250,000 unique customers worldwide, and they're comprised of over 3.5 million Meraki devices being online in the world today. And incredibly, there are over 5.5 million active Meraki dashboard users in the world. The original technology that Meraki, however, was based upon was founded back in 2006 as a part of an MIT research project that our then PhD candidate founders were conducting. Now, they were taking a look at some pretty sophisticated mesh networking algorithms as a part of their research, and what they came across was something quite proprietary that really went on to form the basis of our cloud-managed edge and branch networking portfolio. So when we first started off as an organization, we were really focused on honing the Meraki dashboard to the needs and wants of managing wireless access points. We soon realized we could extrapolate and extend this technology out to the rest of the networking stack. So we soon launched security appliances, switches, mobile device management, with Systems Manager, SD-WAN, and then a couple of years ago we expanded the scope of the technology once again to include general IT items. So we launched the Meraki security camera. And then most recently, earlier on this year, we introduced a brand new product line, Meraki Insight, which provides the tools to be able to, as an IT admin, very quickly troubleshoot a SaaS application, which might be business critical for your organization. And it provides metrics to be able to get to the root cause of the problem extremely quickly, depending on where it is. So it'll provide you insight into your own internal network if there's an issue there, but also it will also point to an ISP issue if the issue is lying there. So from a product point of view, what we have is a complete cloud-managed IT solution comprising of wireless, switching, security, SD-WAN, communications, endpoint management, and security cameras. And so the cloud services, software, and hardware associated with the solutions all integrate in one nice, clean, out-of-the-box bundle. So Meraki's architecture looks something like this. So let's say, for example, you're looking to deploy Cisco Meraki wireless access points at a few different locations. In terms of hardware that you would need for that deployment are simply the Cisco Meraki wireless access points themselves. There's no need for any additional hardware such as on-site Wi-Fi controllers or any overlay management systems. The Meraki wireless access points independently and securely connect back to the cloud, and that's what then gives you the ability to manage them from a simple web browser, the Meraki dashboard. The same thing is true for the rest of the devices we have in the portfolio. No additional hardware devices needed to be able to manage those from the dashboard. An important thing to note is you don't have to have the entire suite of Meraki devices deployed simultaneously at any given location to then be able to manage them from the dashboard. We appreciate that not all organizations will be in the fortunate position of being able to upgrade their entire infrastructure all in one go, so we have made Meraki devices very interoperable with other vendors' networking devices. So if you, for example, wanted to upgrade your switching to Meraki switches would interoperate and integrate perfectly well with your existing network, including wireless access points from another vendor or a security solution from another vendor. In that sort of hybrid type deployment, just do have to bear in mind you'd only be able to manage the Meraki devices from the Meraki dashboard. So in that particular example, you'd only be able to manage Meraki switches from dashboard. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what we describe as out-of-band cloud management. Hopefully by the end of the session, we'll be able to appreciate how scalable the architecture is. We have pretty much unlimited throughput, as we aren't offered any bottlenecks by on-site controllers or any overlay management systems. That can actually even pose a single points of failure for your network that we're immune to. You can also add devices or sites in really a matter of minutes, simply by registering more Meraki devices to the dashboard. There's a couple of different ways to do this. You can actually first of all just read the serial number off the device itself and type that directly into the dashboard, register your devices that way, or a more scalable approach is to actually copy and paste an order number relating back to an order that could be one device or 100,000 devices, it doesn't matter. Copy and paste that into the dashboard, and then you can register all those devices that belong to that order number. Once it registers, you can actually add those devices into an existing network and they'll take on settings of that network, and that's it. That's all you need to do. Just plug that device in where it's needed, or you can actually create a new network using those devices or using existing networks as default configurations. The architecture that we've developed here is also incredibly reliable. We have multiple data centers dotted all across the globe, and actually any given point in time, each Cisco Meraki hardware device is simultaneously connected to 3 different data centers. So what this means is if any one of these data centers was to go offline for whatever reason, it would seamlessly back up to the other data centers and there will be no interruption service for yourself. Even if you were unlucky enough to lose connection to the cloud, your local area network would actually still continue to function, and we offer a 99.99% uptime SLA. So let's move on to talk about security. It's a very important subject. If I can draw attention to the diagram on the left-hand side, what we have set up here is a very simple network consisting of, say for example, a Meraki wireless access point hooked up to a switch, which is then hooked up to a router or firewall, and then that goes out to your ISP. So when traffic does hit the ISP, you can see we have 2 very separate streams of traffic. We have the solid blue arrow, which is actually showing us user traffic, and you can see that clearly bypasses the cloud. We have no interest in user traffic passing through the cloud. It wouldn't be a scalable architecture if we had it doing so. The only information that is going to the cloud is a secure encrypted connection flowing back management data. So this is information such as how many megabytes of YouTube a certain client used on a certain day, etc. So because the way we have the architecture set up means that you're able to build fully HIPAA compliant and PCI compliant networks using Meraki equipment. HIPAA, if you're not aware, HIPAA is a very important standard in North America, whereby no organization does any business within this very lucrative industry of healthcare without having compliance to HIPAA, but it does just show how important we do take security. And finally, PCI compliance, perhaps something that some manufacturing locations may want to offer. Payments card industry compliance, you're able to build payments card industry compliant networks using Meraki equipment. We also hold third-party security audits as well as daily penetration tests to really bump up on our security measures. If you'd like to read up a bit more about our reliability and security information, feel free to log on to meraki.cisco.com/trust. I wanted to share this timeline with you here to really underpin and underline the value of the software, the network as a service delivery model that we have here. So, and the power of the licensing model. So Meraki's model is very simple and straightforward. It's a 1-to-1 ratio between licensing and hardware. So for example, if you wanted to purchase 10 Meraki devices, you would also purchase 10 software licenses. If you wanted to purchase 50, purchase 50 licenses. And licenses come in a few different durations to suit everyone's need. We have an annual license, a 3-year license, 5-year license, up to 10 years if you so wish. But everything is included within the licensing. 24/7 enterprise support is included. We don't have any per feature licenses, so from day one you have access to all of the features built in. But significantly, firmware updates are included within the license. Now, firmware updates are the vehicle that we use to deliver new features, and we do so at least on a quarterly basis. So every quarter, once you've been through your firmware update, you'll log into the Meraki dashboard and you'll see new features popping up absolutely free of charge and without any cost or complexity. So this is just showing you, if you were a customer at the beginning of this timeline, you wouldn't have had access to all these different features, but without actually having to spend an extra penny, dime, cent. By the end of the timeline, you would have had access to all these different features depending on which product portfolio that you'd purchase. So on the wireless side of things, for example, we added things like location analytics, Apple Fastlane support, wireless health most recently. On the security and SD-WAN side, geography-based IP firewall rules, enhanced IPS profiles, advanced malware protection integration. We introduced SD-WAN to an existing hardware device, the MX appliance. On the switching side of things, we introduced things like Mac-based administration, topology view, multicast routing. On the security cameras, we introduced motion-based retention, heat maps, recording schedules, motion-based alerts. So all these features were added to existing hardware devices without the need to upgrade the hardware whatsoever. So it really does demonstrate that the initial investment that you're making in Meraki equipment is future-proofed with these firmware updates that are continually making the product more current and exactly up to date. So let's talk about some solution highlights that we've seen, particularly with some of our manufacturing customers. Wireless is a big trend, of course, allowing employees to be able to communicate wherever they are on site is a big deal, but also allowing them to do so reliably with reliable access to Wi-Fi, particularly in high-density environments or environments where RF is potentially changing. So even in production lines where there's often heavy machinery, magnetic machinery, which might interfere with RF environments. So really, how do we provide in a manufacturing environment at a manufacturing site reliable Wi-Fi access? So with Meraki, you're able to seamlessly deploy site-wide Wi-Fi for employees to communicate wherever they may be on site. We have the easiest solution in the marketplace to be able to deploy wireless. It doesn't rely on any additional hardware, it's just the access points that you need. And then we do have really some very heavy-duty access points in our portfolio that are actually IP67 rated to protect against dust, vibration, and extreme temperatures that are often found in harsh production environments. They can, of course, also be used in outdoor spaces. Within those access points, we have built in a third radio, and in fact, all of our access points, most of our access points, we have a third radio, which is used for a couple of different reasons. First of which is a security reason, so that radio is always scanning the local radio frequency environment, searching for rogue SSIDs and rogue devices, any one of which are found or automatically quarantined off the network, but also that third radio is able to monitor the RF environment, continually searching for better channels to broadcast on. And if any are found, it's automatically going to switch over onto those channels. Going mobile is not about just providing Wi-Fi, but also we have a solution called Systems Manager that provides endpoint management of those devices that are connecting to the network, regardless of if they are company-owned or employee-owned. We're able to manage them from the Meraki dashboard. It's very quick to enroll mobile devices onto Systems Manager. It supports most device types, Mac OS, iOS devices, iPads, Androids, Windows devices, Android devices, Windows Phone are all supported. You can then, once they're enrolled, enforce geography-based policies for employees that are on-site or off-site mobile device usage. So in that way, you can actually, for example, disable the use of the camera on smartphones. There's a lot of production facilities, manufacturing sites out there that will actually require that you leave your smartphone at reception or somewhere before entering the production line, because production line has proprietary processes happening that are confidential. So instead of actually asking employees or guests to leave their mobile phone at reception or before entering the production line, you can actually ask them to enroll into a Systems Manager network profile that will automatically disable their camera function whilst they're on site. You can also, for company-owned devices, seamlessly push apps to that device. If it's a device that's left on the production line, you can lock it down to one particular application, or perhaps there's multiple different applications for different periods of production, and automatically have them flipping over onto those updates. Everything can be controlled from Systems Manager. Next, solution highlight is avoiding production downtime, probably close to the heart of many people listening right now. So one of the biggest things, one of the biggest KPIs for any production environment is to maximize production time. So anything that causes downtime is obviously bad, but how do we avoid or minimize the downtime that's happening? A lot of our customers actually experience downtime on production lines as a result of the network going down. Now, there's a very simple thing that a lot of manufacturing sites do in particular, which is to rely on more than one WAN link in order to try to have some sort of redundancy should something happen to those WAN links. However, actually failing over between the two has proved quite complicated or difficult to achieve. That's where the Meraki MX SD-WAN and security appliance comes into place. It has the capability of feeding into it two WAN links, as well as having LTE failover support should both of those go down. But also built natively into the dashboard for any one of our devices is the ability to troubleshoot network issues in real time with the aid of remote troubleshooting tools such as packet capture and cable testing, which you may, with previous architectures, traditional architectures, have to rely on sending someone on site to do, but we can actually carry those out remotely in real time. And actually, we've found that customers using Meraki can expect to save typically in the region of 90% in terms of operating costs compared to more traditional technologies. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on in the customer example. With the dashboard, you're able to actually investigate issues remotely from a client, follow it all the way through to uplink in a matter of minutes, really to dramatically reduce time to resolution without actually having to wait for an engineer to be called onto site. You also have proactive management, so if any devices do go offline, you can be notified automatically via email, so you can set up alerts for any devices, high priority devices. If they go offline for any given period of time, you'll be automatically notified. With the MX appliance, as I was talking about earlier on, you're able to connect multiple sites really very, very easily with Auto VPN technology that is built into each and every Meraki MX SD-WAN and security appliance. So really this is how we manage the failover. So it has those two WAN links that it can accept, as well as the 3G, 4G or LTE failover. And then with those two WAN links, you're able to now more intelligently utilize them based on what type of traffic you prioritize for that site. So let's say, for example, Salesforce is a very important application for that given site. You may want to provide that with high priority, so you can actually go ahead and set rules such that that always takes the best performing path at that given point in time, because we're always able to measure around every second the loss, jitter, latency for all those WAN links to make those decisions in real time. Built into that same box, the MX appliance is a unified threat management solution that's continually being updated via the cloud, which prevents downtime that's potentially caused by the latest malicious cyber threats. So last year was a very popular year, newsworthy year for cyber threats that we had. And in fact, no Meraki customers were affected. And interestingly enough, organizations that were affected by those vulnerabilities actually need not have been affected. The only reason they were affected in most cases was because they actually hadn't upgraded their security solutions threat signatures. It's because the upgrade process was convoluted or more manual. It required perhaps someone to make a site visit, an engineer's site visit to update that device. All Meraki devices are of course connected to the cloud, so on the Unified Threat Management solution side, it's continually being updated seamlessly over the web to the latest security signatures, so it's able to fight off those events without any actual manual configuration or any manual monitoring from anyone from your IT team. Finally, we do have next day advanced replacement across the portfolio, which helps keep the manufacturing line running smoothly. Finally, there are products within the Meraki portfolio to help minimize waste in a manufacturing environment. So as the image suggests, the Meraki MV security camera is that product. The initial purpose of the device, of course, is as a security camera, but we're now in a place where we're able to not just offer really enterprise physical security, but also provide analytics out of the box for the security camera. So a little bit of background about security camera. It differs from most traditional enterprise security cameras that you might be used to, with the fact that it doesn't require, is not dependent on any additional third-party hardware to offload footage. Built into each and every Meraki MV security camera is solid-state storage. So the camera is recording onto that solid-state storage, and it's only using the cloud to index motion events. And it's, of course, end-to-end. Everything is encrypted. We take security very, very seriously. So there is encryption on the device itself, there's encryption on the transport, there's encryption on its management data. So it makes it by far the industry's simplest solution to implement. All you need to really do is plug the device in, provide it Ethernet, and you're good to go. Built in, again, on board is some very sophisticated processors to allow processing of all of that data. And so you're able to build motion heat maps. That's just a screenshot you see there. So you can actually get an understanding of day by day or hour by hour where motion is occurring for the frame of the manufacturing environment the camera is capturing. And actually we had a dairy manufacturing customer able to save a lot of waste using this. They were able to identify that there was movement in a part of the frame where there shouldn't have been any movement. And so in that way, they actually isolated a leak from one of the pipes and were able to save a great deal in terms of wasted milk. So to summarize then, the real overarching benefit of Meraki, it's simply disrupt or be disrupted, as one of our previous CEOs infamously said. So organizations of every size and industry really risk fundamental disruption because of new technologies, new players, and new ways of doing business. Now, the business impact of a new, and in most cases these days it'll be a digital initiative, will diminish over time as more competitors enter that space and really go ahead and run similar initiatives for their organization. So let's say, for example, if you're a manufacturer. Now, key to manufacturing is producing a product at a cheaper cost than a competitor, or producing a unique product in the marketplace. So either way, if you can reduce the cost of a commodity product more than your competitors, or if you can successfully launch a new product that's completely brand new to the market, creating a new marketplace, you're going to be able to capture most of that market very quickly. So in order to do so, you want to be one of the very first that have done that, because no doubt all your competitors are going to try to do the same thing. And once there are more competitors in the marketplace, you'll be able to capture less of the opportunity. So manufacturers that are the first to apply a new digital initiative will likely capture the lion's share of the opportunity. So what Meraki does is cloud-managed IT devices allow businesses to rapidly lay a digital foundation to roll out a digital initiative to grow revenue, reduce cost, as well as mitigate risk. So you're able to then really beat your competition to implement new digital initiatives to give you a competitive edge. So let's move on to talking about one of our customers, Bar S Foods. So a little bit of background first about what Bar S Foods do. They're the actual largest food packaging company in North America by volume. From an infrastructure and company size point of view, they have 14 distribution centers, 5 production sites, a warehouse, and a headquarters location. So the Meraki products that they went ahead and deployed were Meraki Wireless, switches, and security. So the full networking stack with Meraki. And so some of the results that they saw as a consequence of deploying these full stack of Meraki networking devices, after having run a total cost of ownership analysis with Bar S Foods, over a 5-year period, they're expected to save over 500 hours in production downtime, which actually equates to over $5 million in production revenue that's saved with Meraki over a 5-year period. And ultimately, they were able to save in operating costs almost over 99% with Meraki over a 5-year period compared to traditional technology. And overall, if we also include total cost of ownership in this, so this is a combination of capital expenditure as well as operating costs, they were able to save almost 90% over 5 years with Meraki compared to traditional technology. So really significant savings experienced by Baris Food over a 5-year period. I'm going to flip over to my web browser now and take a look at a live demonstration of the Meraki dashboard in action. So I mentioned earlier on, what we'll use as an example network for demonstration purposes today is actually our very own Meraki network that we have deployed at various locations around the world. So I log into our dashboard. This is the very first view that I see. It's a really nice overview on Google Maps showing us where in the world, first of all, we have cloud managed IT locations. And secondly, the color of each of these locations are showing us the health of the network at that particular location. Green means the health of the network, that location is healthy, devices are online. Red means we have some offline devices at that particular location. So I know our network quite well, so I know the red location we see here on the west coast of the US, actually where our global HQ is in San Francisco, California, which incidentally is where most of our engineering development team sits. And they're always changing around settings of devices which require them to be turned off. However, if I didn't know all of that and I just logged into the dashboard to see at a glance, there are some locations that require attention. I can very easily navigate my way over to them simply by clicking into them on the map here. Or all the networks we have deployed globally are listed in this table on the right-hand side. So for example, if I want to find out more about what's happening with our network in San Francisco, I can just click into Meraki San Francisco and it will take me off to show me more information about what's happening with our network there. So what we're looking at now are a list of all of the clients that have been accessing our network in San Francisco over the past day. Now, if I wanted to look at a different time period, I can do so very easily. You can just hit this drop-down menu here and take a look at over the past 2 hours, week, 30 days. Let's just choose the last week to give us a bit more data to look at. While that is loading, I just want to take a small step back and explain the UI that we're looking at here. So from this one page now, we're actually within one click away from all of the monitoring and configuration capabilities of all of the Meraki device types we have deployed at this particular location. So as you might expect, at our HQ in San Francisco, we have the entire suite of Meraki devices deployed, including a security appliance, switches, wireless access points, endpoint management systems manager, phones, security cameras, Meraki Insight, the whole shebang. So on the left-hand navigation menu, you can see there's a line item for each one of those devices. So if I hover above switches, for example, I'm shown all of the monitoring and configuration capabilities for our switches. Same thing for our wireless, for Systems Manager, for the phones, for the cameras, as well as Insight. So now, when we're taking a look at all the clients that connected to the network over the past week, all 2,800 plus clients, they're actually a combination of clients that got onto the network using either a wired connection, denoted by the little Ethernet icon in the status column, and that's information coming straight from the Meraki switches, or clients that got onto the network using a wireless connection, shown by a little wireless icon, and that's information coming from Meraki wireless access points. We have more information about all the clients that have been connected to the network over the past week. We have their description, when they were last seen on the network, amount of data they used while they were connected, operating system they're running, IP address, any policies that have been applied to the client's device. And if I hit this little plus button here on the table, I can now add and remove columns to really customize this view to suit our own specific needs. I can also download all the data in the table as a CSV or XML file to manipulate further. However, we do have some basic search capabilities built right into the dashboard. So say, for example, I wanted to find out how many iPhones connected to our network over the past week. I can simply type in iPhone in this box here, and it performs a real-time Google-esque search, immediately showing me just under 400 iPhones connected to our network over the past week. I can do the same thing for Android devices. Just under 100 Android devices connected. I can also search by OS. If I type in Windows, we have over 500 Windows devices connecting to our network over the past week, so fairly popular on our network. So search box is really very powerful. Effectively is like Googling your own network in real time. All the information we see here in terms of all the clients listed, when they were last seen, their description, all this information is automatically captured. There's zero setup required for this. As soon as you allow clients to use the network, all this information is captured automatically. In fact, all the information on the dashboard, from a monitoring point of view, is captured automatically without any setup required whatsoever. That also includes on the top right hand side where it says applications here, and I can expand that out. application usage. So all this information has been captured automatically again. We can see over the past week all the applications that have been used. If I sort the table by usage to give a bit more meaning, we can show more than 20 results. So we can see here applications such as WebEx, Spotify, Facebook, Gmail, all these different applications have been reported here automatically. There was no setup required. There was nobody from our IT team that had to sit here and say, okay, these sorts of packets of traffic need to be given the category YouTube, these other packets of traffic need to be given the category WebEx. All that is going on automatically in the background, and you're presented this really easy to digest information out of the box. Hopefully you can also see that each application is reported as a hyperlink. So I can actually drill down into specific applications and find out more details about who's been using that particular application over the past week. So I'm going to go ahead and pick on Facebook, drill down into Facebook. So we have another table here now showing us a list of all the clients that have been using Facebook over the past week. You can see the description of the client, their manufacturer, operating system, the amount of data they used for Facebook. And hopefully you can see that each client's descriptions reported as a hyperlink again, so I can drill down one level further into specific clients that have been using Facebook over the past week. So I'm actually going to go ahead and sort by operating system. I want to try to purposefully pick out a client connected to the network using a wireless connection so we can show off some of those wireless features. Let's go ahead and choose a client with some usage. Let's choose this particular client right here. It's an Android device, number 5. Click on that. So we're now taking a look at more information about this one client. So you can see the client is connected to the network right now. The little wireless icon is green, so it's wirelessly connected to the network right now. SSID it's connected to is called Meraki Corp. The access point it's connected to is called 3.18. Now the name isn't all that important, but what is quite cool here is it's showing up as a hyperlink. And next to that hyperlink is text saying topology. Now topology is an excellent feature that again was added through firmware updates on the Meraki switches. So if you have an existing Meraki deployment today of, let's say for example, MX, SD-WAN and security appliances or Meraki Wireless, and you're wondering why you don't see this topology feature or this topology button, it's because it is the Meraki switches that magically allow this to turn on. Now, what is topology? Topology is, as the name suggests, it's a way that we use the Meraki switches and technology built in there to automatically map out your network's topology. So where in the past you may have used an application such as Microsoft Visio to go ahead and create a diagram showing your network's topology, which may have taken some while to draw up depending on how complex the network is, but either way you're essentially creating a static diagram. Often by the time you've finished drawing that up, it's already out of date because someone's moved part of the network. Well, over here, this automatically maps out a dynamic topology diagram, if I open that in a new tab, to really show you your network's topology in real time. Now, one of the other benefits of the topology diagram is because I've accessed it from this particular client's page, what I'm now also going to be able to see is the path that this client takes back out to the internet. So if, for example, as a troubleshooting scenario, this client had raised a support ticket saying that they were having connectivity issues, as an IT admin or as a network admin, I can locate the client very easily on the network, and I can then go to their topology view and get a very quick understanding and an immediate understanding, at a glance understanding of the path that they're taking back out to the internet and the devices in between them and the internet, to very easily get an understanding if there are any issues with those devices in between. So this is what the topology looks like. The green dots you see are Meraki wireless access points. The rectangles are Meraki switches. The phone icons are, well, Meraki phones. The video icons are Meraki security cameras. And you can see most of the topology diagram here is grayed out, but there's one path that's highlighted, and that's the path that the client we were looking at earlier on is taking back out to the internet. So it really is easy to see visually that all the devices in that chain are green, so the color of the icons are actually showing us the health of that device as well. So this would suggest that to an IT admin that it's potentially a client-side issue that you may want to investigate first. We can activate the entire topology diagram just by getting rid of this MAC address here, and we can see mostly everything is green. I want to see if there's anything offline or yellow alerting of issue. Nope, everything seems good, but let me, if I hover above this particular item here, you can see that particular access point has not been reachable for almost a month. So if I wanted to navigate my way over to it, again, it's showing up as a hyperlink, so I can actually just click into that and navigate my way over to that access point. I'm going to move back to the clients page here. The other thing that probably is going to draw attention is this map view on the right hand side. What we're looking at here is the floor plan of our third floor of our offices in San Francisco, and each green icon you see is a Meraki wireless access point that we have deployed on that floor, and that's what the dashboard gives you, the ability to upload your own organization's floor plan, and then you can drag and drop wireless access points exactly where they exist in real life, which is incredibly powerful if it ever comes to troubleshooting. And we also see a blue dot here, which is the last known approximate location of this client. So that's actually acquired via triangulation of the access points around the client. And you can see this access point is highlighted in bright greens because that's the access point the client was last using. As we go further down, we can see a real-time signal strength of this client's connectivity to its access point. You can see the user's H.1x login, device types automatically being identified as a Samsung device. You can also see its wireless capabilities. So in this instance, we can see that this device has H.11ac wireless capabilities at both 2.4 and 5 GHz radio frequencies. And we can take a look at usage for this client over the past week, where on the previous page we were taking a look at usage over the entire network. We can take a look at now usage. Just this one client has contributed to the network over the past week, and the bandwidth profile in this chart. We can see any policies that have been applied for the client's device, network credentials, IP address, MAC address, VLAN. I can also ping this client right here from the dashboard. If I expand out this applications list, we can see specific applications this one client's been using, destinations this one client has been visiting over the past week. So you can see some destinations blurred out there because I'm logged in using a read-only login to the dashboard for demonstration purposes, but if I was to log back in with my admin account, we'd be able to see specific HTTP destinations clients have been visiting over the past week. So let's say, for example, I'm going to step back a little bit, and let's say, for example, you've gone ahead and deployed Meraki Wireless at your own organization, and you've got all this great rich reporting information at your fingertips, and let's say that you've been going through the dashboard much like we have been today, and you come across this particular client, and let's say that for your organization you deem this client's usage of Facebook as excessive and abusing their network privileges. So what can you, the IT person at your organization, do about this? Well, first of all, we can actually block this client right off the network in real time very easily. If I go to device policy here, it's set to normal. If I hit the drop down menu, I can go ahead and say blocked, and I can even leave the client a little message saying get back to work. So it's really that straightforward. So what this is now going to do is boot this client off the network, and the client will be presented with a splash page which encourages them to get back to work. So that's how simple and straightforward it is to get rid of nuisance clients off your network in real time. One thing, however, this doesn't do is it doesn't go back and undo the bandwidth abuse that's occurred already. So we can't go back in time yet anyway, but what we can do is utilize the built-in firewall in each and every Meraki wireless access point to proactively build in some layer 7 firewall and traffic shaping rules to prevent this sort of behavior from occurring in the first instance. So let's see how we can do that. So if I come into wireless here, and we can go into configure firewall and traffic shaping. So we can configure firewall and traffic shaping rules by SSID. So you can see here we can configure up to 15 SSIDs per network. So let me just choose an unconfigured SSID as an example. So you can go ahead and enable LAN isolation on layer 2 for SSIDs as well. You can enable or disable that. It's only available in bridge mode. But layer 3 firewall rules, we have one applied here, allowing wireless clients access to the local area network, which if you're configuring a corporate network is perfectly normal and probably best practice. You probably want wireless clients to have access to LAN to use local resources such as printers. However, if you are creating more of a guest network, you probably would want to not allow that, so you can very easily just change that policy from allow, hit drop down menu, to deny. Now wireless clients don't have access to LAN, so it really is that straightforward. Moving a little bit further down to more interesting application and content categories. So the layer 7 firewall rules, I can very easily now go ahead and add a layer 7 firewall rule here. And there's a few different ways I can do this. First way is by HTTP hostname. So earlier on, we were talking about that one client using too much Facebook, but if we wanted to get rid of Facebook altogether from this particular SSID, I can do that simply by typing in facebook.com here. That's now gotten rid of Facebook off this SSID completely. So that might be perfectly all good and well, but maybe we want to get rid of not just Facebook, but social media applications in general. So you could actually add another line for Instagram, another one for Twitter, but to simplify things, we've actually built in some application categories. So if I hit the drop-down menu application here, you can see we have everything from blogging, email, through to databases and cloud services, advertising, as well as the ability to select a port, remote IP range, or a combination of the two. So if I go ahead and select social web and photo sharing, that's where social media applications would be. And now in one nice clean line, I've gotten rid of all social media applications off the network completely. That's how simple and straightforward it is to do. But maybe you didn't want to be as mean as getting rid of social media applications altogether, but you did want to constrict the amount of bandwidth that's being utilized for social media applications. Well, we can also do that. So if I go ahead and get rid of that layer 7 firewall rule, we can do that in traffic shaping. First of all, before we get to the granular application level, we can actually be selective about what's being used for the bandwidth that we have available. So we can go ahead and set limits for per client bandwidth limit. It's set unlimited right now, but I can go ahead and drag that down to, for example, 500 kilobits per second. So now what's going to happen now is no client using this particular SSID will be able to draw more than 500 kilobits per second of precious bandwidth. So that should go some way to controlling the amount of total bandwidth being used. However, if you get a lot of simultaneous connections to the network, that can soon cumulatively add up. So we can go ahead and place a limit on per SSID bandwidth limit as well, so I can drag that down to, for example, 5 megabits per second. So you as the IT person in your organization now can rest easy in the knowledge that your network is never ever going to, your SSID that you've configured here is never ever going to use more than 5 megabits per second of precious bandwidth. So we could stop there and everything would work perfectly well, but we can go one level further and try to optimize and be selective in terms of what the available bandwidth is being used for. So I can go ahead and say shape traffic on this SSID, and I can create a new rule, and I can go to add and what we were talking about earlier on, which was social media applications. So I can go down to social web and photo sharing, and I can be as granular as to choose a specific application, but let's just go ahead and choose all social web and photo sharing. And now, instead of getting rid of all these applications altogether, what I can do is actually define how much bandwidth I'd like to have available for use per client for these applications. If I throttle that right down to 100 kilobits per second, what's going to happen now is any client using any social media application on this particular SSID is going to hit a bandwidth threshold of 100 kilobits per second per client. It really is how straightforward it is to create rules such as that. Conversely, if I wanted to actually do the opposite, which was open up bandwidth for prioritize a certain application, I can also do that. So you might want to do this for things like business email or VoIP and video conferencing. So let's see how we can go ahead and prioritize those two applications on a network. So if I go ahead and add a new shaping rule, I can go ahead and add a definition, and let's go ahead and choose email, and let's choose a specific email server that perhaps your organization uses for business email. That might be Gmail, for example, and then we can go down to VoIP and video conferencing and select all VoIP and video conferencing. And now instead of having choose the limit selecting the per client bandwidth limit category, I can hit drop down menu and I can go ahead and say ignore SSID per client limit unlimited. Now what's going to happen is any client using Gmail or any VoIP and video conferencing application using this particular SSID is going to be given as much of the bandwidth as possible, so it really is going to prioritize and optimize their experience for those two applications. So So hopefully that provided a nice overview of the sorts of things we can do on the wireless side. There are 101 other things I can show you, but in the interest of time, I'm going to quickly show you a couple of features on the MX SD-WAN and security appliance, as well as the cameras, before moving back to the presentation. So we go to our MX networks. If I type in security here, go to the Meraki San Francisco security, leave this page. So the real crown jewel of features this particular appliance has is its ability to create site-to-site VPN tunnels. Now, if you've ever created site-to-site VPN tunnels yourself using more traditional technology, you know that you have to spend a lot of time in front of a command line setting numerous parameters, any one of which you get slightly wrong, you've got to go back to square one. Well, we've tried to simplify that as much as possible here. So what we're looking at here is just summary report information that this particular appliance is able to gather. But if I wanted to go ahead and create a site-to-site VPN, firstly, in order to do this, what you would need are at least, in order to do this the way I'm about to demonstrate, are at least 2 MX SD-WAN and security appliances, one at each location. You can then come into security appliance here, go ahead and say configure and site-to-site VPN. Now the first time you come to this menu, you probably will see the type as off. So I'm just going to go ahead and select off. Now all you need to do is, in order to set up a site-to-site VPN, is decide what type of site-to-site VPN you'd like to set up. Either a hub, which is essentially a mesh topology for site-to-site VPN, or a spoke. Let's say, for example, we're interested in a hub topology. Go ahead and select that, and that's it. Everything else automatically configures itself. Nothing else that you need to do at all. And you can then go ahead and choose which local networks you'd like to have available for use on the VPN. That's it. That's all you need to do. Now there are, again, so many more things I can show you on the MX SD-WAN and security appliance, but we don't have the time for it right now. But if you're interested in learning more about that device, feel free to sign up for an SD-WAN or security webinar, which would go much more into detail on that particular device. Let's take a quick look at the security cameras that we have deployed. So let's just take a look at the San Francisco ones. So if I go ahead and go to cameras and take a look at the ones we have deployed at our office in San Francisco. So before I get into too much more detail on the cameras, I wanted to just explain the architecture behind the cameras. So much like we did when we launched Meraki wireless access points back in 2006 now, over a decade ago, we did away with the need for, from an architecture point of view, on-site Wi-Fi controllers. Now we've done something quite similar for enterprise security cameras. Traditionally, the enterprise security cameras have relied on additional hardware, such as video management system solution, or NVR, network video recorder, something to offload the footage that's being captured by the camera. So we've done away with that by actually incorporating on each and every Meraki camera solid state storage. So that's always, anytime the camera is recording footage, it's recording directly onto the camera itself, and it's encrypted end to end. So security is of paramount importance for us there. And there's no video that's ever being streamed to the cloud. The only thing that we're doing is indexing motion events in the cloud to make it very, very easy and straightforward for us to find those motion events. So I'm going to go ahead and choose a security camera to take a look at. Let's go take a look at the bike room, for example. Let's choose one of these cameras. Let's choose the bike room exterior wide. So it's actually now making a direct connection to that camera in real time, and now it's starting to stream footage. So this is our bike room camera right now. Now that's all great and well, and you may be thinking, okay, how does this differ from traditional security cameras? I can get this from all the other security cameras, enterprise security cameras that are out there in the marketplace today. It's a great question. So let's just talk through and compare a simple scenario that is very often the case for security camera deployments. So let's say, for example, there was a robbery and a bike or bicycles were stolen. So how would you go ahead and find that footage? So With a more traditional deployment, you may actually need to travel or send someone on site to go ahead and retrieve that footage. There are a surprising number of organizations that we found while we're doing market research into this field that are still using VHS tapes, so those would need to be retrieved. You would then have to probably assign some poor person to sit through the last 48 hours worth of footage to find out exactly when that occurred. Now over here, I've already got a live feed to the camera. What I can now do is perform motion search. Now if I'm interested in motion in a particular area, I can go ahead and select that area. So let's say, for example, all the motion that occurred where that door is. And this is real time, so it's not going to show us any motion right now, but if I zoom out a little bit, we can see some motion events happening here. And so showing us all the timestamp motion events that happened in that selected region. It's showing me the duration of those events, the percentage of the entire frame that moved, and then also the percentage of the frame that I highlighted that moved. So if we sort by the region of interest, which is the frame that moved, and let's choose the very first one here. Again, what it's doing, it's retrieving that footage from the camera securely and playing it from the camera itself. So we can see here someone's about to leave. If I speed this up, you can see that person walked straight through the frame, hence why we see it was captured as a motion event. Now if we imagine that that was the perpetrator that stole those bicycles, we can export this footage very easily, export up to 5 minutes, and it'll create a public URL that we can share with law enforcement. So they don't need access to the dashboard. This URL that's going to play up to 5 minutes worth of footage can be shared just using that URL. So it really is that straightforward. Now, beyond the security camera as just a camera, we can start thinking about it as a sensor. So those use cases I was talking about earlier on, where we have customers that are using it to proactively improve processes in production environments as well as reduce waste. So built into the camera is analytics. If I go into the second tab here, analytics, so we can see for any given date, so let's choose last week some point, let's choose the 29th, we can see hour by hour, and we can change that time resolution if we wanted to. If I go further down here, the movement that's happened. Now, this is very easy now to understand and visualize to see if there was any movement in areas that we wouldn't expect movement. So if we imagine this was a production environment and let's say, for example, this 3 to 4 p.m. here showing a red region and there was no reason for there to be any movement during that time, I can zoom in, find out exactly what the movement was and find out what it was. And this is exactly the same way that a leak was discovered in that dairy manufacturing environment I mentioned earlier on. Because this is also one of our newer cameras that we launched earlier on this year, the MV12s, which have built into them a Snapdragon Qualcomm processor that allows us to do really some advanced analytics on board. So that Qualcomm Snapdragon processor is the same sort of processor that is found on most smartphones. So there's an incredible amount of processing power built into that one device. That allows us to essentially get advanced analytics such as people counting. So we're able to understand for that particular frame how many people were coming in and out, what was the most utilized hour, total entrances, and hour by hour. And again, this is a dynamic view, so I can click into any one of these and drill down into those entrances into that frame. We have more information in terms of the network information about the camera, location, event log, settings that we can change as well. So we can change the rotation, high dynamic range, quality and retention. So we can go ahead and choose when footage should be recorded. We can record it according to a schedule, enable motion-based retention, which is slightly different from motion-based recording. Motion-based retention will actually delete footage older than 3 days in which no motion was detected. So at any given point in time, you have the 3 last full days worth of recording. You can also decide when the camera should delete footage, when it runs out of storage space, or we have some customers who have a limitation of in terms of they need to delete footage after a certain number of days. So you can go and do that here. You can decide the video resolution, video quality. You can choose to record audio on this particular model of camera, and then it'll actually give you a rough prediction of how many approximated days of retention you have here. Over here is only showing 7 because I've purposely selected that, but if I go to when it runs out of storage, and if I change video resolution, it's saying up to 29 days. We also can configure night mode as well as motion alert, so we can be automatically notified by email when motion is seen, and you can define what you would want to regard as motion. So hopefully that provides a nice overview of the sorts of things we can do on the dashboard. Again, there are 101 other things I could show you, but in the interest of time, I'm going to move back to the presentation here and simply finish off by taking a look at the product families we have in the portfolio. The entire full stack of Meraki devices looks something like this. We have our MR wireless access points, indoor and outdoor access points, MX SD-WAN and security appliances, Meraki Insight, Meraki switches, Systems Manager providing endpoint management, as well as Meraki MV security cameras. The key thing here is that all of these devices are managed from that one platform, the Meraki dashboard. So a lot of customers will start off with one of these product lines, and when their refresh cycle comes along for any of the other product lines, they'll go ahead and add those and have the ability to manage simultaneously all those devices on one platform rather than having to log out of the platform to find out more about their security or more about their wireless or more about their switching. They can do it all in one place, end to end. So next steps, we do have an excellent evaluation program that we run here at Meraki, where you can try any one of the products we have in the portfolio absolutely free of charge, something we'd highly recommend. URL for that is meraki.cisco.com/eval. Maybe you're interested in more general information or want some information on particular models and data sheets. It's available all on our website, meraki.cisco.com. We do also have a blog that we are always publishing new articles, which you can keep up to date with, /blog. Or perhaps if you have a specific question or are interested in a quote, please feel free to contact your Meraki representative. Their direct dial information is in the reminder email for today's webinar, or you can visit meraki.cisco.com/contact to find their telephone number. So we're at the end of the session in terms of what we wanted to cover on the slide deck here, so I want to thank you very much for your time and attention over the past hour. I hope you found the session useful, and we do hope to speak to you sometime soon in the future. Thanks very much now. Bye-bye.